have you, and welcome everyone to Manifesting with Meg, Conversations with Extraordinary People. This is episode 96 with my special guest, Grace Sammon, and our theme tonight is Rejoice in the Joy That Lies Before You. No better way to start July and the fabulous freedom that we hope for, that we have, that we hope to bring around again. It is time to liberate ourselves from the prison of a negative state of mind and surrender to the pursuit of what gives us utter and yes, complete bliss. Remember, you always have control of your mind. This story and this show is about transformation, dreams, inspiration, true happiness, discovering our bliss. You are just a conversation away from extraordinary. It's time to wake up to a universe packed with possibility. Welcome, Leslie and Lee. I am so excited to share with all of you the beauty of Grace Sammon. Once again, this is a show that follows my book, The Magical Guide to Bliss. It is one where I take everyone on the journey of waking up to bliss, and we set our intentions at the outset. And at the end of the interview, we will actually go and see what your intention was, Grace, for today, and pick that number, and away we go. We all know the drill, and now it's time for all of you to meet Grace. She's an entrepreneur, educator, speaker, and author. She started and managed two for-profit and two not-for-profit companies. And she's also traveled throughout the 35 states and 8 foreign countries, recognized in who's who in education and who's who in literature. She's building and utilizing her skills over a decade as she reinvents herself with award-winning fourth book and debut novel, The Eves. And we're going to talk about that tonight as well. And as well, she will return to two of her early loves and share that with you of the radio, which is even more exciting. The entire, I would say, magnitude of what she's building for herself and for the author community is just astounding. And I can't wait till she tells us more about that. But without further ado, I'll tell you a little bit about The Eves. It's an intergenerational story about lives lived well and lives in transition. It's a novel that challenges each of us to ask who we want to be in the world, regardless of our age. Grace brings that quest for a good story and a drive to keep contributing to her radio show, The Storytellers, broadcast on Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Each episode captures the stories of authors and others who choose to leave their mark on the world through the art of story. And I love the storytellers of the world. They are the ones I believe will save us. She's also the founder, there's more guys, of Author Talk Network. And she's a member of Women's Fiction Writers Association, Women's National Book Association, and she's the director of membership for one of the fastest growing Facebook groups, Bookish Road Trip, which I love and I've been so lucky to be a part of. She's currently working on several anthologies, sketching out her next novel, which we might get a little bit of a glimpse into what that looks like, preparing to launch her collaborative ebook, Sharp Tips for Exceptional Writing, and preparing for her newest venture, everybody, The Launchpad, the radio show and podcast that celebrates new book releases and the authors that create them. My God, I can't even believe she has time for me tonight, so I'm so grateful. She grew up in Long Island.
I'm on hiatus. And
this is her hiatus, everybody. So can you imagine when she's full throttle? I don't even know what to do. We're like going to be able to see her. She'll be like really, really spinning. She currently lives in Florida with her husband and a small herd of imaginary llamas. You can reach Grace via email at grace@gracesammon.net. And without further ado, did I miss anything? I don't want to miss anything.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. I don't know who that woman was, but Meg, thank you for having me because you're pretty darn amazing. Thank you so much.
You know, I have, and we were talking about this before the show began, how lucky we all are to have jumped into this world and these magical connections that keep popping up over and over again. And I will be the last one and the first one to say how grateful I am to this beautiful creative world that I keep getting dragged and pulled and, teased into, because the reality is I do believe that creativity is, once again, the storytellers will be the ones that will save us. We tell better stories and we live more incredible lives. So Grace, that's a tip of my hat to you, to all that you've done and all that you're going to do, which is a lot. And they're all saying, wow, that is some resume. Yeah, don't even own it, honey. Own it, own it, own it for sure. Denise Bird is here saying hello.
Oh, she's fabulous. Hello, everybody.
Everybody's here. So today's theme is perfect for us. And I really think it is because when we first connected, we were talking about manifesting. We both got excited, and you're as magical as I am, maybe even more so, I think, to a certain extent. Rejoice in the joy that lies before you. And I love this quote because it's Abraham Lincoln. And he says, we can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorns have roses. Thorn bushes have roses. I just battered that. But the reality is, as we develop, all of us serves that greater purpose as we come into our own, discover our individual calling. And it's really the all of us that benefits, as well as, keeps us stopped to learn those lessons on the way. But if we focus on our flaws for too long, we can get nothing done. We miss out on those positive traits that we call our strengths. And those parts that are filled with wonderful potential that really will catapult us on to even something better in life. So then we keep choosing joy, choosing those strengths, choosing those passions, choosing a life well lived without the burdens of what we claim to be our flaws, so to speak. Remembering that every part of us is beautiful, and every part is beautiful in that rose bush. Everything is important to the whole. And there's no really point to complain about the thorns, because in the end, it's so much more that meets the eye. The thorn protects the rose, right? So it can grow into something even more beautiful. So we choose to see the beautiful roses today, or maybe go through life with a bit more amazing grace. So what are your thoughts on that, Grace? I cannot wait to begin. Let's do this.
Well, again, thank you, Meg, and thanks for everybody who's with us tonight. I love that kind of the whole is equal to the sum of its parts, right?
Yes.
I would love to, part of me would love to, have a body that I had 20, 30 years ago, but I wouldn't be able to do the work I'm doing now if I didn't have, those things that I earned over those 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of life. So we are, and we spend, particularly, I think, women, but we spend so much time saying, if I was taller, if I was shorter, if I was thinner, if I did this. And it's such a waste of time. Let's live in the present. Let's value what we have. Let's pick up your theme for today of look at what is coming next and being excited about that rather than regrets. I really try to live my life regret free. When I make a mistake, I make an amend and I move forward, but there's no room for looking backwards. So your theme for today of looking forward, I fully embrace. Thank you.
Well, I will say, to your point as well, and the fact that you're giving permission to all women out there who are listening, all men as well, you got to embrace the whole picture, because that's what you were given. That's the hand that you were dealt. And it's kind of fun. Like, I'm looking at your beautiful handprints behind you, to get into the paints and then start playing with the colors of life and rejoice in that and see what we can do with that, what we can do with all of us to produce something that we can really be proud of, which is exactly what you should be, is proud of this beautiful book called The Eves. I had the luck to read it, finish it, and explore just your imagination, because it is a fiction, it's a novel, but it's just really amazing. One of the beautiful things I think by doing all of this is that we get to read so many different authors, and certainly you do. Author Talk, Launchpad, you are exploring different ways people think about how to tell stories. I want to start with your journey, your journey to this. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I lived in pretty much, Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver world. I'm 68 years old. So I grew up in that period of time where if you turned on television, everybody was perfect.
Yeah.
The houses were perfect, the families were perfect, and, everything got wrapped up in 30 minutes. And I think though, if yeah, it was just a perfect little world. And of course it wasn't. It was a very white world. It was a
Mm.
very artificial world. And I think if you scratch the surface of many of us, we then get to that part which have real experiences which shape us. It's those thorns that shape us as well, right? The rose bush needs to be shaped by the sum of the parts. So I had some very specific turning points. I was sexually abused when I was 12 years old. I never had anybody who believed that experience. So I very much understand the voices of people who are not heard, whether they're not heard because of sexual abuse or they're not heard because of race or gender or political uh, bent or whatever. So for me, it's very important to listen. So that was a big turning point. Another turning point for me was, I thought I was in that Ozzie and Harriet world. I was married, I had 2 kids, and I went to the post office 2 weeks to the day before Christmas to pick up what I thought were Christmas presents, and they were my divorce papers. And
Oh,
I was like,
oh my God.
whoa, I did not see that coming.
Wow.
So there was another one about where I was forging a new business, and very abruptly my business partner left. And each of those felt very horrific, and they were horrific, but they also helped shape me in a way that said, where do we go from here? What have we learned? And I don't know, Meg, that I ever did that consciously.
Yeah.
It was not until much later in life where I said, what is the door that is opening? I'm working on a piece right now. I don't know if it's going to be a blog post. I'm actually hoping it's going to be a book, but it's going to be something along the lines of changing your life one opportunity at a time.
Mhm.
And I don't think, again, I don't think you get to do that till you're at a certain point in life, unless you're way smarter than I am, because it took me a really long time to get there. But that's where I think I am, in terms of having the time to listen and to think of where I went. So I have some big footprints
Yeah.
along my path, but then there's that opportunity to just have that door open. I never would have thought I had a radio show. And I did an interview with a woman named Gail Carson, who owned a radio station called Spunky Old Broads
I love
out of
it.
Miami. Yeah, SOB Radio. How cool is
I
that?
love it.
And she interviewed me and she said, oh my gosh, I love what we said. You need to have your own radio show. And I said, oh, I can't do that. I'm done. I wrote my novel. If you read my novel, it's all about the character thinks she's done, and I'm done. And she goes, no, did you read your novel? You are not done. And that was the beginning of so much more.
Wow. Okay, so you just unpacked a lot just in that whatever. I mean, like, I love it. She's on hiatus right now, but yet at the same time, I don't think it's possible that you could even do any interviews without offering so much, so much worth and value. And I think that what you just said, for anyone out there listening, a victim of child abuse at 12, you're going thinking you're going to get Christmas presents and you get divorce proceeding papers. Maybe that was a present, which you didn't know it at the time, because I'm super sure it was a shock at the time, but you still are driven toward life. You're driven toward living life, even when they tell you, even when you tell you your novel was it, you're done, let's move on. It keeps pulling you back to live more, to experience more. And I think that it might play into a huge part that you can't have regrets, because life keeps telling you, not yet, Grace. Not radio show, not yet, Grace. We've got more. And that, I think, is a beautiful thing, because you said you didn't act out of consciousness initially, but you do pay attention and you do take on the opportunities. And I think that plays into rejoice in what lies before you, because when you keep saying yes to the opportunities, you're saying yes to life. So now we have this beautiful book And I have to say, people are saying you're a living example of when one door closes, other doors open. That's Mike Spatola. And that is a lot to happen to one person. That's Leslie. You are an inspiration. And that is, in fact, the case. When people breathe life into the world asks more from you. And I think that is what is happening to you and to anyone who is labeled as inspirational, and you answer the call. That's the greatest gift that you can give to being here that next day and the next day and next day. So let's go back to your beautiful novel. And I'm gonna, one of my favorite things is this part, because I ask for your inspirational quotes that gets you going, that gets you to be alive and in this world. Welcome, Camila. I'm so happy you're here. You got to meet Grace today. This is awesome. So the first one, and one of my favorites as well, to thine own self be true. Shakespeare and Josephine Caruso Salmon. First of all, tell us a little bit about Josephine, and then
Mom,
why that is so important to you.
my mom always said that. So this is my mom, and my mom is definitely a character in the book, if you will. It's the character of Joan. She's wise, she's sage, she is gentle, she is inclusive. And she would always say this to us. And of course, she thought that this was from the Bible, and so many of Shakespeare's quotes are confused that way.
Yeah.
But she had this point that if you are not true to yourself, you cannot be true to anybody else. And that was also within the norms, if you will, of a woman of that generation who felt very strongly that women had a certain place. I remember telling her that I wanted to be an evening newscaster on television, which would not have been a stretch for me since my father was in television news. But she was very clear that I should be home making dinner for my children.
Okay.
But so she was locked within, in some ways, the parameters of her time, but she was also, know who you are, do not pretend to be anybody else, and live by your core. And that has resonated with me from the time I was a little girl.
So I do want to speak to this, because I will tell you, even today, with what's happening in the world, we still have come so far. And I think what this quote and your mother's wisdom, that wonderful wisdom that she passed along to you, the authenticity of who you are, keep showing up as you, and you will go far. You will go far in life. Even though her box was small and her world was leave it to beaver, perhaps, the bottom line is that you hold on to that and you pay it forward in a different way than what she was able to do. So this is so powerful. This is so important. And this also plays into your book as well. So tell me a little bit about how you began the writing process, because I think it's really important that someone who's sitting in your position doing what you're doing with all the knowledge and wisdom you have, you started somewhere, right? You began the journey of writing somewhere.
I did. Now, The Eves is my fourth book, but it's my first novel. So there's a little bit different journey than I had than perhaps some other authors. From the very first time I graduated from college, I was writing brochures for the university where I went, because I was an admissions counselor. Then I switched to travel and tourism, and I would write these brochures about sitting in this lovely taverna overlooking the Aegean Sea. Well, I've never been to Greece, but I would get all of the tourist magazines together. But so somebody someplace thought that I wrote well. And then again, I mentioned earlier that I had a business partner who abruptly left our business. But one of his parting words were, if you don't write a book, you're crazy.
Oh, wow.
So I sat and I wrote a book. When I wrote The Eves, it was different. I was winding up traveling to 32 states, 200 days a year. I didn't know who I was. My mom had already deceased. My father was elderly. My children were grown. And so many of us, and I'm my mom's daughter, I lived in certain roles. Now I would tell you, I am the sum of my parts. I am totally authentic. Whatever you see here is what you get. But I didn't know who I was going to be without those roles. So I created the very, very broken Jessica Barnett,
Mm,
who had given up on herself, her looks, her degrees, not her lies, not her vodka.
yeah.
And she needs to find her way in the world. So, in many ways, I created the worst of who I am.
Love
And
it.
I created a younger self and an older self. So the youngest character is 15, the oldest is almost 94.
Wow.
And I got to play with all so many voices.
And I love that you're saying play with so many voices, because when you write, and I think a novel, it gives you that kind of license to, do what you may not be able to do in the world that you live in, that you can do that. And I love the fact, like I said, back to the point, and you have to learn about this in the book, is that it's a very creative endeavor as well. There's a lot of creativity that goes on at the eaves, but I'm not going to give it away. I tend to, so I'm going to step back a second, and I'm going to go back to our quotes, because I really do want everyone to go and purchase this book, because at its core is exactly what she says on the cover: when our stories are told, everything changes. And those words alone are so exciting to me, because then everybody becomes perhaps the person that they know they are. And that is something that you see happening. So let's go on to the next. Don't hide your gifts, use them, challenge them, hone them, share them widely. Please tell us what this means to you.
I think for myself, and again, I don't want to extrapolate to all women or to all authors, but I think we frequently hide our talents.
Mm.
And I think there's a fine line between boasting about how I do all of these things in that resume for that person that you read earlier, and what we're just really good at and where we feel comfortable. I say to my husband all of the time, stop hiding your talents under, what's that thing? Putting your light under a bushel.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's that balance, and balance is so important to me, and it's probably the thing that I struggle with the most. But it's that idea of having your feet firmly planted on the ground, knowing what you can do, also taking risks in what you can't do, right? But
Yeah.
having that confidence in yourself that you can say, yes, come on my radio show, come on my new radio show. I love it that we're doing a new show coming out in August. And I think I have 30 people signed up for the show already, and the show's never launched yet. So
This is
I love,
Launchpad, right? That's Launchpad.
yes,
That's
yes,
Launchpad.
I love that people think this is going to be great, and I know it will be great because we will have great guests.
Yeah.
But there's that ability to say, I was given a certain set of gifts. My mom used to have a sign in her kitchen, and it said something along the lines of, our talents are our gifts from God.
Yeah.
What we do with those talents are our gift back. And service is
Okay, wait a
so
second. Say that again so the people in the back can hear you. You have to say it, because I think this is really key to shifting from humbly serving and powerfully serving, because I think at the end of the day, we want everyone to powerfully serve the whole with their beauty that's within them. So say it again. What your mother, she's with us tonight, baby.
She is. So first of all, I want to say service is really important to me on a number of levels, and we can go there now or at another time. But the plaque in her kitchen said, our talents are our gift from God. What we do with those talents are our gift back.
Yeah.
And I would say, regardless of where you are in a religious continuum, that which you are given, you need to give back.
And what you reap what you sow. And imagine if you give back in such a way that it empowers not only others, but also empowers the beauty that is you. And I get so excited, because that, and the fact to this point, literally is what I'm the most grateful for, is to have that opportunity to give back to the world with things that I love to do, because it's really the exciting parts. And here we go. Just for today, I will be grateful. The start of the Reiki principles. Tell me what this means to you.
I came across this phrase because I'm a hospice volunteer. And one of the things that the hospice in my community offers is Reiki training. And not a lot of people know about Reiki, but it's a if you come out of a Christian tradition, think of it as the laying on of the hands, and obviously hands are important to me. If you read my book, they're important. If you ever see anything I do, there's always hands. But it's the idea of sharing a positive energy, which
Mhm.
I will be the first to acknowledge I do not understand. I do not understand how we share energy, but I can bear witness to the fact that we do. And I have learned over particularly the last 5 years, if we don't live in today, we live in yesterday and we have regrets. We
Mm.
can only live in today. So today I have learned that we must live in gratitude every single day.
Yeah.
And we must do that today and live in gratitude. The rest of those Reiki principles say things like, today I will not be angry.
Mm.
Today I will do my work honestly. Today I will be kind to every human being.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
there's just a set of principles, but they start with the work of being grateful.
Well, it's interesting because when you start to be grateful for your life and for where you are in this world, it makes everything else easier. I find a little bit less forced and more effortless, let's say. And, one of the things that people are saying are these are words to live by. And I love that you start, like, I think that all the other stuff, maybe being honest or all those other qualities or attributes, maybe a little bit more challenging, but we can be grateful. Like we can be grateful for this moment in time where we get to record together and play in this spot together. I want to go back to what you were saying about the hands and tell us why that is so important to you and the act of service like you're speaking of, because I really do think, since you mentioned it, and I know that that's important to you, that we talk about that, because I really do believe that there are those things about us that we hold very near and dear. So go ahead, please tell us a little bit about that.
I think service is so multifaceted. It looks very altruistic. She's a hospice volunteer. She
Mm.
works with abused children. She works at her church, whatever the things are. In truth, I have always gotten more from being of service than I feel I have ever given.
Mm.
It's a place where you can build your skills, build your talents,
Yeah.
and all the same time connecting to people. So for me,
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that when I was young and had no voice in my sexual abuse,
Mm.
being a voice for others is very important. So here in Florida, we have something called a guardian ad litem
Yeah.
program. In other states, it's called a CASA, but it's basically being the legal voice for kids who have been neglected or abused through the foster and then wound up in foster care. I also, with my hospice work, that has a lot to do with these are now people who may no longer have a voice. So being of service to me connects me to my past journey, certainly my future journey. At some point, I'm going to die. We're all going to die. So I find that being of service keeps me grounded
Mm.
in a way that other things don't. I do some service here in my community, which is in the scheme of life, zero importance. I make signs for the gates that say board meeting tonight, or, something similar, ice cream social for the kids on 2 weeks from now. In the scheme of life, that's not important, but it keeps me connected in a
Yeah.
way that I wouldn't have been otherwise. And it's an easy gift that I can do.
I,
So
I
it's
love,
a, it's about leaving your mark on the world. You read my book, for which I'm so grateful, but so much of it is about how do we leave our mark on the world, and
right.
that's the handprint piece. Jocelyn Jones, the amazing acting coach
Yes.
out of LA, the whole front of her book called Artist has hands
Oh,
all
that's
over it. And oh, do you have a yes?
there it is. But we're talking
So
about you
true.
today, Grace. Look at you being of service to Jocelyn. She's wonderful too. But we're talking about you
But she
today and
she
your
talks
beautiful
about,
book, The
thank you.
Eves. Yes.
But
And
she
the fact,
talks about the
yeah.
earliest part is leaving our mark on the world.
And the fact is, I guess when you talk about how you leave your mark on the world, how when you touch something, you leave it better than when you came to it. And I think that, certainly, yes, if you read the Eves, you'll learn more about that for sure. But I do love that you're very conscious about that. And I think that that is also what Jocelyn speaks to as well, is that conscious understanding of what your handprints mean. And literally the act of service, that anything you touch, and back to the energy component of Reiki. Now, we don't know how it works, but I know that if someone's coming into my world in this like blocks, I know if they're offering beauty and love and joy. I feel it. I feel it even though you're in a different part of Florida or anywhere anyone else is. Even Annie saying tonight that I love you. I feel it. I receive it. And I think that you don't have to understand, but to not even to understand, but to feel it. And I think that that certainly is why you're such a great writer, is because you make people feel when they read your words. And that takes us to this. So I was curious when I read this, what it meant to you. So you cannot sit in 2 chairs or wear 2 pairs of shoes. Dolores DuPont. I'm looking for your interpretation on this one.
People love this quote, and I love that they love it. So Dolores DuPont is a woman who is now, I think, 92.
Oh.
When I met Dolores, she was a very, very old woman. She was 72, which means that she was 4 years older than I am now. I think I was, I don't know, 50 something. And I just thought she was such an old woman. So now I'm so embarrassed that I thought she was so old. She is definitely the blueprint for Elizabeth in my book.
Oh, awesome.
And when she and I met, my mom was dying, and she and I would cross paths on a walking path in my community in Maryland where I lived. And I would be crying. I would be processing, my mom was dying. My son was a senior in high school, and, he was leaving, and I was traveling 200 days a year. I was just emotionally and physically exhausted. And she stopped one day and she said to me, "What's the matter for you? What's the matter for you?"
I love it.
So I immediately resonated with her because, I grew up Sicilian and Irish and German as well. But, and I was just really not able to make a decision about so many things in my life. I was dating the man who is now my husband, but it wasn't really going that well, to be candid. And she sat me down one day and she said, "You can no sit it in 2 chairs. You can no wear it 2 pairs of shoes." And it was that idea of live decisively, right?
I love it. Okay.
Yes. Live decisively. You can't have everything. You cannot.
Yeah.
But you can make choices that give you a very full life, but you know what? You can't sit in 2 chairs at the same time.
Oh my God, I love Dolores.
I do too.
Is she still with us? Obviously, yes, 92. She's still with us. What's the matter for you?
She is. Yeah. What's the matter for you? She is still with us, and I have to tell you, the whole thing in the Eves where she wants to go on a vacation, the kind that doesn't need any suitcases. Yeah. She's wanted to do that for 20 some odd years, and she's still here.
That's Dolores. So I love. I don't know if you mentioned the name, but I love that character so much.
Elizabeth.
Oh, Elizabeth. I loved Elizabeth, and I love the fact that she is based on a real life character, that there's someone out there in the world. What's the matter for you? And what powerful wisdom. You can't do everything that you want at the same time. And it's funny because even now at this point in my life, I look back and I'm like, wow, I have gifts that are children, but I know that my career did not take off the way, my initial career did not take off the way I wanted it to, because I had the choice of having children. But the bottom line is back to, all these opportunities. I wouldn't be sitting here having the conversation with you had that not happened. So, I will tell you that I love the fact that, it plays into the gratitude, the piece, grateful for where you sit and what chair you're actually sitting on, and what maybe the fanciest shoes you're wearing are not so fancy at this point in time. I love this. This is wonderful. We all love it. We all love Dolores. This one, be kinder than you need to be. It takes much less energy than being mean. Sounds like it would have come from your mouth, and it is a Grace Sammon quote. So tell us what this means to you in your life.
I have lived by this for a long time, Meg. I think it's just too easy to not listen. We talked earlier about when our stories are told, everything changes. We spend so much time not listening, not giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, writing them off of like, why did they cut me off on the road? Why did they say that? If we take the time to listen, we will find, I believe, kindness in our heart. And it's just the simplest thing to be kind. And it's like volunteering for
Yeah.
me. You write somebody a note that says, I hope your dad's doing well.
Yeah.
Are you with your mom and dad this weekend? That comes back to you 1,000-fold.
It does.
And it makes the world a happier place. And I really do believe that kindness comes back. I hope the snarky stuff doesn't come back. Because
Yeah.
I could be snarky. I try never to be. But this is, if I have a hallmark, it is be kinder than you need to be.
Well, I think especially now in the times that we are living in, yes, always, of course, always. But if at any time in the history of my life that everyone needs to show up a little bit more kinder, even when they may not want to, because Lord knows I have had experiences where I know that my anger is peaked, especially if you're in the flying world right now and coming back on a trip and your flights are canceled. But the reality is that's, everybody's experiencing this. If you're kinder, then your experience might be changed, and certainly the other that you're interacting with as well. So I think that these are definitely words to live by. And I think that, when you do show up in a world where you are that, I think that many people will recognize that you are that kind of person. Your reputation will precede you. So I think it's kind of like that vault or that emotional account where you keep putting kindness in. And if you have that snarky day, people will think it's funny. It's a part of your storytelling. I know the drama that we all want to share, maybe it would be seen a little bit more different than normal. So I love
because we have those thorns, right? We have those
Oh.
thorns as well.
Oh my
And
God.
Jessica is so broken. At the end, she is just taking notes the whole time. So she has these life lessons, and they're on my website, and they're in the back of the book. But
Yeah.
she's so broken, she has these little quotes so that she can remember to do those things. First, do no harm. They're not rocket science. They're
So,
just the day by day.
Since we're talking about the book right now, as far as what you did at the back of your book, which is genius, I think it's genius for book clubs. It's genius for those things that you want to just refer back to. First of all, you have an interview at the back of your book that is all about you and your experience with the book. And I'll just leave that to everyone when they get it and they read it. It's really wonderful insight into you outside of any interview you might have. But what I loved the most is the lessons that you put at the end. And I'm going to just show it. It's Jessica's lessons. You can't really see it, but when you get the book, you'll see it. There's a whole page, there's whole 2 pages, the 25 lessons. What made you write that? I love it. I go ahead.
First of all, you can download them from my website. And the only reason you can download them from my website is one of my readers wrote to me and said, and I've typed them all out and printed them. And I went, oh, wow, I'm so glad that resonated with you, but let me make it easy. So it's all about just making it easy. But I wanted to point out that Jessica is so unattached, unaware of who she is. She's constantly saying, this character is so likable, that character is so likable. She's got her faults. She's not my favorite character, but she is likable. She is a good person, despite the fact that she has a little bit too much vodka and she tells a bunch of lies. There's a reason for that. And I wanted it to be that we all can go from that bottom place to one day at a time, finding gratitude, finding our legs, finding the strength to walk.
That's beautiful. And I think that's really important, finding the strength to walk. Sometimes we crawl, and that's where we start from, right? Or we even drag ourselves from our beds in the morning. But I think that, when we go within, and I think that that's what you're talking about, is like when people put this mirror up to us and say, you are beautiful, you are wonderful, you have gifts, you have strength. It's back to the whole theme tonight, is rejoice in the beauty or the joy that lies before you. It's because it comes from you. And I think that when we realize that, thorns and all, those beautiful roses become that more, inviting to others, even though they might get pricked occasionally. But it's really, really amazing what you do in the telling of the story of Jessica and her characters that surround her. And like I said, I want everyone to go out and get it, because I think that it is an experience. I love good storytellers. I am a very big critic, and I hate to say it because I like, just because I'm so critical of myself. But when I can enjoy a book that I read it so, it's so effortlessly, then I definitely want to convince others to do the same. But, back to you, back to Grace. My vision here, and always, as everyone knows who watches the show, is to engage the extraordinary in you and have you share with us those things in your life that make your life, that you see, that you love most about your life. And in this particular avenue, what I want to talk to about are those glimpses that you may have had at one point in time into your bookish road trip group, and also your radio shows, the author, this launch pad that you're doing, and also your author talk series. So please tell us a little bit about that, in the spirit of sharing, learning, and perhaps other people may look at their own lives very differently when an idea comes to the fore.
I have no idea. I have no words.
I am waiting.
I have no words. Sorry. Sorry, no words. I think that it all begins with taking some risks. I never think of myself as a risk taker, but it's that idea of looking for the door that opens. I'm so excited that Annie McDonald is here tonight. She is one of the first people who read the book, believed in the book, believed in me. And that all happened because I listened to an interview that she did with Julie Valerie of Bookish Road Trip. There were 4 moderators of Bookish Road Trip at the time. And I was just overwhelmed at the brilliance of Annie's questions, the brilliance of Julie's answers. And I reached out to both of them, and they really said, well, this is how it's done. And the author community and the author supporting community, Denise is here tonight, Annie's here tonight. I haven't looked at all of the scroll, but Leslie, all of the people who are here, we are part of a community that knocks my socks off every single day. But if it wasn't for somebody like Annie who said, oh, you should do this, come on my show, I wouldn't have had that confidence. So, or the woman who interviewed me and said, you should have your own radio show. So I really believe that we don't know when we're done. We're not done till we're done. We may be in that dark place, and I have had those dark places, as we all have. I remember going to bed 6 weeks, 6 weeks, my father had died, things weren't going well in so much of my life. And I had a girlfriend who barged into my apartment and said, it is time for you to get out of bed, girlfriend. And I was like, oh no, I'm good. I'm really good. This is fine. So what I have learned, and this is the gift to me of being older, if I was young and smart, and there are so many young, smart people, but I was not one of them. At this point, I have learned to see when the door is shut and whether I can knock and have entry, or whether the door is shut and that's a good thing, whether it's ajar, whether it's opening for me. There are just so many opportunities that we have. Bookish Road Trip is my happy place on Facebook, Instagram. We have a website. We've got 3 newsletters. It's an amazing community. When I joined just under 2 years ago, I think we had, well, I can tell you, a year ago we had 1,600 members. Now we're just under 4,000. My goal, I'm director of membership, so my goal is 4,000 members by the beginning of August when we celebrate our second anniversary or our second birthday. I love it. It is super organized. Mary Helen Sheriff, who you have
Amazing.
hosted on this show, is our CEO. She does amazing, amazing work in keeping a
Yeah.
bunch of cats well herded. We've got great programming. Everything is posted. So I invite everybody, because I want to make 4,000 members, and because it's a great place to hang out, to join us at Bookish Road Trip. The Storytellers came about, as I told you, from having done that one interview. What I have found out brings me joy is the process of creating. And that's become an interesting challenge for me. I created Author Talk Network, which is 19 authors who I brought together for creating, collaborating, and communicating. It was tons of fun to do that. We're coming out with an ebook under Red Penguin Books this
Wow.
month. It's a lot more fun to create it than to actually run it. The same thing, I'm starting Launchpad, which is a new radio show, which is unlike anything out there. So I'm on Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, both with Storytellers and with Launchpad. So with Launchpad, it's going to be 4 authors on at a time. They agree to cross promote because I like that idea
I
of
love
us lifting each other up. We're going to broadcast across Facebook. We'll then broadcast on Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. So
it.
lots of collaboration. And from that, I just thought I should write a 3-book series called Launchpad: Countdown to Writing Your Book, Publishing Your Book, and marketing your book. And I have no idea, because that was a really great, fun concept, and Red Penguin Books picked it up. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot more fun to create that than to actually roll up my sleeves and do it.
And this is on hiatus, everyone. I want to tell you, all these overachievers out there. Yeah, I will say, don't cover your face. You own it, Grace. Own it, own it, own it. Yes, yeah. I would, if you had a tiara, I would tell you to put it on right now, because I will say,
I think I have one.
and you do have a tiara. I love it. I love it. You know, I do say,
I'm still with you.
No, please get your tiara. There we go. Okay, now we're talking, and I will join you, because this is my show and I can do whatever I want with my tiaras. I love it. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm big advocate of women and men to claim their tiara, claim their wonder, claim they're amazing, because that will produce more of that to the world. Yes. And we'll take it off. We'll pretend it's our imaginary now. But the bottom line is this: you have ideas and you act upon them and you see where they go, which I love it, because that what makes you extraordinary. And that is what the gift is to others, to see you doing that and to say, maybe I can do that too. It gives them permission to shine, permission to be who they are authentically. Back to your mother, Josephine, to thine self be true, right? And at the end of the day, we all can show up as our authentic self, really enjoying that, not feeling like we're imposters, but really enjoying the process, because it is the process. Either we trust it or not, there's a process going on. So I want to ask you, what do you think is like one of the things that keeps your, I would say, this party, the Grace Party, moving forward? How do you manifest? Like, how do you keep yourself engaged, aware, and keeping yourself going?
Oh, that's such a great question, Meg. I think I channel on the living in the moment. I definitely thrive on the creativity. I also really strive to help others. Part of the idea of Launchpad was, oh, let me see if I could do that. But also, I came into this work so naively. I didn't know what a work in progress was. I didn't know what a TBR, a to be read list was. I didn't know what any of that was. So, in my short time as a novelist versus an author, which goes back much further, I like that energy that we share. It's also, I think, for me, the idea of finding meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems to help me do that. And I think there are many ways to do that. I love that you think I'm extraordinary. I believe we're all extraordinary. We each have a gift that we bring to this world, and that can be something as easy as picking up the newspaper from your next door neighbor and putting it on their front door instead of leaving it in their driveway. I just think that we can all bring the gifts that we have, that kindness that we have, the creativity. I would tell you where I struggle with is balance.
Mm.
I really took
Not
this.
surprised. Not surprised.
I took this 2-month hiatus because I absolutely believed I would be rolling up my sleeves and writing my next novel. And I've written the introduction and I've written the epilogue, and I've written very little since.
Well, that
So
seems like you have a pattern and you're very consistent, because that's what you said you did with the Eves. So there you go. You're on a roll. You're on a roll.
So, and then someone today asked me to do their audiobook. And I'm like, well, that sounds like fun. I've never done an audiobook, but you can't sit in 2 chairs.
Yeah, it's like the squirrel. Where?
Yes.
I want to say, and Annie's saying your meat and cheese trays keep you going. So I imagine that's an inside joke. So I just thought I'd make you laugh at this point. And Katrina Pavlik-Keenan, who is one of my mentors, is saying rising from the ashes results in great things. And that is the truth. I mean, in many ways, we walk these paths and we feel like we're down at our lowest, and yet we rise. We keep rising. And what you're saying is that you're saying your yes to all these wonderful ideas that you have. It makes that, as my daughter would say, you're extra, you rise above the ordinary. And I think that goes back to the whole idea that I see you as a very magical person, definitely a magical connection. And guess we get to be sharing your intention for this evening now as to the magic that you want to share tonight with all of the people who are watching.
I love that you asked me this, and I have to tell you, I was not particularly creative, despite the fact that I just said that, what I love about my life right now is creativity. But your theme for tonight was to rejoice in the joy that lies before you. And to me, it spoke very loudly to, not having regrets, don't look backwards, and look at those opportunities. So my intention for tonight was to stay present and to look at what's ahead without being overpowered.
Wow, I love it. So what number did you pick in the magical guide?
Well, first of all, love the magical guide. And again, wasn't feeling particularly creative, and I thought, I'm just going to let the powers that be let me figure out. That was my intention. And very atypical of me, I picked page 276 because it was my birthday.
Okay.
And I am not somebody who usually celebrates my birthday, but my birthday is September 8th. And talk about magic, the theme for September 8th is never look back. There is so much opportunity ahead.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
the serendipity between the theme, and I love the things that you say here, enlarge your vision of what will happen. And then you have brilliant words, but so much opportunity lies ahead for you. Don't look back on what you may have missed, or you will miss what is coming.
I got goosebumps. Not because there's something about this evening, and 2 things that you said that I love is that you seek meaning and purpose in life, right? That ultimate, that thing that draws you into the world and pulls you out of yourself and your fears into engaging. And matched with that, don't look back. You're going to miss the beauty of what's right before us. And, Katrina's saying it's cool. And it is so cool because I've got goosebumps all over. The reality is that we hear those yummy words like Annie's saying to engage and invite us, to welcome us, to engage in the world that is right here and what we can do to make a difference. So back to you, of course, because I just got excited. That's me. I get excited. And the fact of the matter is that I just met you, but for me, it's pay attention to what's right in front of us, because this conversation, I hope, will continue. I truly enjoy what you've written, what you do, and who you are. And I just basically scratched the surface. And I think anyone who's listening, I definitely would encourage you to get to know Grace, really end the bookish road trip. She invited all of you to join. Let's help them make that 4,000 goal for sure. I want to finish tonight, which is my favorite part, the final inspiration. And I know in many regards we have had so many inspirations tonight, but you got to give us something that, so tomorrow morning it'll be the first thing with that gratitude component. We wake up and we say, bring it to me, God, bring it to me, world, whatever it is you believe in, just that energy of love and joy and bliss and magic.
Well, first of all, thank you to everybody. I am beyond honored to have shared your microphone, Meg. And I'm not gonna, there's that wonderful, is it T.S. Eliot, not with a bang, but a whisper? Be kinder than you need to be. There is somebody struggling in a way that you don't understand. And just when our stories are told, everything changes.
That is something I want you to say one more time for everyone to hear, because I think that will engage or welcome anyone to start telling the story that they want for their life. So say it again. It's beautiful.
When our stories are told, everything changes, but we need to listen. That's the key component.
Yes. Yes. Wow. So listening to you has been a delight, Grace. You are certainly someone that I have very much sit with gratitude to know that you're in my world. I want to remind everyone that Grace can be, you can find Grace at gracesammon.net, www.grace, Grace, Sammon, SAMMON.net, NET. Why don't you tell us some other places that they can connect with you as well?
I'm on Twitter, sort of. And then Instagram, Grace Sammon Writes. On Facebook, I'm just at Grace Sammon. That's my personal page where I hang out way more than I do on my author page, which is Grace Sammon Writes. You can direct message me. You can email me. I answer everything. I love book clubs.
Yes. She has a wonderful guide at the back of her book for book clubs. So I definitely encourage, and I know that you do this via Zoom as well. So anywhere in the world, country, etc., you can contact Grace. And also you have the Author Talk Network at www.authortalknetwork. And also, of course, your email again is gmsammon@gmail.com. I would definitely encourage all of you to contact her. And I want to show this. I saved the best for last. Tobias and the Eves and Bob Sammon. This is something, and I'm going to put this up next to your book because I want them both to go together before we say goodnight to you, Grace. Tell us what Go with the Flow, Tobias and the Eves and Bob Sammon. What does that mean to you?
So Bob Sammon is my dad, and Tobias, even though my dad was a white male, Tobias is an African-American doctor. They're very similar in spirit. And my dad was 90 years old, and I remember putting this big challenge to him about me, and quite honestly and candidly, the relationship I was having with my now husband. And he was like, "Oh, really? When he comes to Florida, does he stay at your place?" I was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, I'm 58, I'm 58. And he just sat there and he was asking me questions. And he said, "If it's okay with you, it's okay with me. And at my age, it's time to go with the flow."
I love it.
And I just was like, yes, we all have to go with the flow. We can't get stuck. Go with the flow.
I love it. So with those two wonderful inspirations tonight, we have Go with the Flow from Bob Sammon. I welcome that into my world because there are many times I like to think I can control everything. But, hey, you did your best. You put all you could into that wonderful child that you have, and you must go with the flow, which I think my son will really appreciate you adding that to the list tonight. And I want to say once again, what a beautiful opportunity it was to speak with you tonight. And I get to put you next to my book as well. The fact that your mother's story is so poignant in this book made me cry. And I just want to tell you that when you shake my heartstrings and you make me feel like there is a connection beyond this, what we're having, but the words by which you're sharing, then the gratitude does definitely go out to you as well. So remember, all of us, we're here to be deliberate creators of our lives. Dream big and let us all raise the positive vibrations on this planet so we can all live our bliss. Let's love ourselves exactly where we are, reach out to each other, and continue to spread the love. Go check out Grace on Bookish Road Trip and all of her shows. It's time to manifest the life of your dreams. And by doing that, you might be able to play in the field or in the playgrounds with others as well. I wish you all bliss. Thank you so much, Grace, for this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to talk tonight. You are magical. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone.